You don't die the way you think you do. When your body exhales for the last time, it feels less like an ending and more like a remembering. There's a strange stillness, not heavy, but full, like the air before a storm. You may not even realize it right away, because you're still there, you still feel, you still think, you still exist. The separation begins gently. Edgar Cayce spoke of the silver cord, that luminous tether connecting your soul to your physical form. And when that cord is released, you don't vanish. You shift, as if your awareness slips out of its old skin, drifting just above the shell you once called me. Some souls feel peace instantly, others, confusion. The difference often lies in how connected you were to spirit while alive. For some, there's a sudden rush of clarity, as if waking up from a long and blurry dream. For others, it's like walking into a fog with no map. The senses don't vanish, they evolve. You're no longer limited to your eyes or ears. You feel in dimensions, sense through vibration, perceive without a body. If you've ever had a lucid dream or an out-of-body experience, imagine that, but deeper, wider, more real than reality itself. At this moment you are greeted, not always by angels with wings, but by presence, a familiar warmth, a knowing gaze, guides you forgot you had, loved ones who passed long ago. For some it's a parent or a child or even someone you never met in life but whose soul has danced with yours before. This meeting isn't always verbal, it's energetic, a resonance. You remember them not with your brain but with your being. This space you enter has been called many names. The borderland, the threshold, the etheric plane. Cayce described it as a frequency band where souls rest and recalibrate. There's no ticking clock here. Time flows differently, like soft waves folding into themselves. You may linger for what feels like days or what feels like centuries. The moment is shaped by you, your beliefs, your expectations, your soul's vibration, and then the life review begins. But not like a slideshow or a courtroom drama. It's more intimate than that. You don't just see what you did, you feel it. Every word you spoke that hurt someone, you feel it from their heart. Every act of kindness you gave, you feel it ripple through the lives you touched. It's not punishment, it's education at the deepest level, soul level, learning through total empathy. Cayce made it clear, this is not judgment. There is no external judge sitting on a throne. You become your own witness, your own teacher. You see how each moment mattered, not to shame you, but to awaken you, to show you that your life was never small, never meaningless, never forgotten. And this understanding cracks you open. Suddenly, you're no longer alone. You're surrounded by souls, some you recognize, others you don't, but you feel the bond. A soul family, traveling together across lifetimes. They may have played different roles in your journey. Parent, friend, stranger, even enemy. But here, you see them as they are, eternal travelers walking beside you in a divine spiral of growth. You begin to laugh, or weep, or both, because you remember, not with your mind, but with your soul. There's healing now, deep healing, not just from this life, but from many. Energetic wounds carried across centuries begin to dissolve. You're taken to spaces that feel like temples made of sound and light. You lie in crystalline beds that vibrate at the frequency of love. You're bathed in frequencies that speak directly to your cells, your soul cells. Colors you've never seen but somehow know. Harmonies that pierce straight through your spiritual body, dissolving every burden you thought you had to carry forever. It's not just relaxation, it's reintegration. This is where many souls finally release the pain they died holding on to, the loss, the betrayal, the regret, the trauma. All of it becomes a current, flowing back into the source that created it, not erased, but understood, not judged, but resolved. And then something extraordinary happens. You begin to learn, not from books or teachers in robes, but through direct consciousness transmission. Entire lifetimes of knowledge enter you in moments, You touch a symbol and suddenly you remember who you were in ancient Atlantis. You hear a tone and recall the meaning of your birth star. Libraries of light unfold before you, and you navigate them not by walking, but by intention. You remember why you came to Earth. You remember what you agreed to before you were born, the people you chose to meet, the challenges you designed to grow your soul, the gifts you buried so deep in your being that you spent decades trying to find them again. And you feel something rise within you. It's your essence, pure and unfiltered. It's who you are when you're not pretending, when you're not afraid, when you're not wearing the mask of this world. You begin to ask questions, but they come from a different place now. Not from doubt, but from wonder. Why did I choose that path? What was I meant to learn? Did I fulfill my purpose? And if not, what happens next? There is no voice booming from the clouds. Instead, you are gently guided toward what Casey called the Council of Light, a gathering of wise, radiant beings, some who feel familiar, others who radiate with such ancient majesty that your soul bows in reverence. They do not command, they reflect, they hold up your life, not to condemn but to clarify. You are not told what to do, you are shown what you can become. And in that space you realize something profound. You still have a choice. You can return, reincarnate, take on a new life, a new form, a new mission. Or you can serve, from the other side, as a guide, a helper, a silent whisper in the ear of someone you once loved, helping them through their darkest night. And there's another option too, to ascend, not into some unreachable heaven, but into a higher level of service. A vibration so pure that even the idea of I begins to dissolve. You're not losing yourself. You're becoming more of yourself. So much more that you can no longer be held by a single name, a single face, a single lifetime. This is just the beginning. At the very beginning of the soul's departure, there's often a moment, a suspended stillness, when the body ceases but awareness remains. You may not even realize you're dead. You might still hear the machines beeping, the cries of loved ones, or the silence in a hospital room. You might see the doctors stepping back. But there's something different. You're watching it from above. In that moment, something thin and radiant connects you to the form below. It shimmers, like light bending through water. This is the silver cord. Edgar Casey described it as the energetic tether anchoring your soul to your physical body, and once it severs, gracefully, not violently, you're released. Like breath on a mirror, your earthly identity begins to fade, not who you are, but who you thought you were. There's a moment of hesitation. Some souls linger, hovering just above their body, not out of fear but out of curiosity, love, or even disbelief. Is it really over? You may wonder. You might feel completely lucid, more awake than you've ever been. Or you may drift in confusion, sensing something's changed but not knowing what. The state you find yourself in depends greatly on how you lived. Those who cultivated spiritual awareness through love, mindfulness, forgiveness, often pass through this threshold with clarity. There's a sense of being guided, lifted, carried by a presence they've known in dreams or moments of stillness. But for others, especially those deeply entangled in material identity, the transition can feel disorienting, like waking from a dream you didn't know you were having. Your senses shift. Vision is no longer through eyes. It's spherical, complete. You don't look at something, you know it. Sound becomes vibration. And you don't just hear, you feel. You become aware of energies, fields, even thoughts around you. It's overwhelming for some, liberating for others. Imagine suddenly understanding a language you've heard your whole life but never comprehended. That's what it feels like. And yet, despite all this cosmic expansion, you still feel like you. Your memories, your emotions, your essence, they're intact. In fact, they're sharper now, clearer. There's no static, no filter of hormones or fear or conditioning, just truth. But it's not the kind of truth that judges you. It's the kind that frees you. Then something begins to pull you, Not with force, but with resonance. It's as if your soul recognizes a vibration, like a song you forgot you loved. You feel drawn toward it. Some describe it as a tunnel, others say it's like being lifted through light, or moving across a bridge of stars. Time is irrelevant here. What matters is frequency. Your soul naturally gravitates toward what matches its current state. If you were full of love, gratitude, and growth, the spaces you enter will reflect that. Open, welcoming, infused with radiant light. But if your life was steeped in denial, resentment, or fear, you may enter a dimmer realm, not as punishment, but as reflection. These are the spaces Casey referred to as planes or realms of consciousness. They're not geographical, they're vibrational. This is why your development while alive matters, not because you need to be perfect, but because your level of awareness determines how you interpret this transition. If you spent your life denying the soul, you might not even realize you've died. You might wander, searching for a mirror, a phone, a familiar face. You might resist moving on, clinging to the edges of the physical world. But help always comes. Guides, angels, and loved ones are never far. You are never abandoned. And then there are the rare souls, the old ones, the ones who have walked through lifetimes with open eyes. For them, death is not a surprise. It is a welcome remembering. They often transition smoothly, bypassing confusion altogether, stepping into the afterlife like walking into a sunlit room. They've prepared, not just by belief but by how they lived, how they loved, how they let go. You begin to sense this now, that your soul has done this before, that this moment has come many times, in many forms, that death isn't the doorway you thought it was. It's a threshold, a birth into greater awareness, a returning to source, but also a continuation of purpose. You might see your body for the last time and feel nothing but gratitude. No fear, no clinging, just awe for what it carried you through. You'll remember every moment you thought you were alone and realize you never were. You'll feel the presence that walked beside you in every shadow. You'll feel yourself begin to rise. This is the sacred detachment, not cold, not distant, but full of reverence. The shedding of identity, not the loss of it. You are no longer the name on your driver's license or the face in the mirror. You are something ancient, something aware, something awake. And now you move, not with legs, but with will, not across space, but across vibration. You may pass through scenes that feel like dreams, beautiful landscapes, glowing gardens, star-hilled skies. Some are symbolic, some are literal, all of them tailored to your soul's language. Some souls are welcomed into chambers of rest, places designed to ease the transition. You might lie in fields of light, bathed in healing frequencies. You might hear music without instruments, see colors without names. This is where the soul is recalibrated, where the density of earth begins to lift, and the higher frequencies of the spiritual planes begin to settle into your field. Others move quickly, not because they rush, but because they're ready. The higher your vibration, the more clearly you remember, and the more you remember, the less you resist. Resistance is the only thing that slows the soul's journey. Not judgment, not karma, just the grip of old beliefs and fears. But even that softens here. There's no punishment for how long you take, no shame, just compassion, just presence, just love. Because here's the truth that Casey revealed. The soul is not forced. It is invited, always, into healing, into remembrance, into the next chapter of its infinite story. You are that soul, and this is just the beginning. As you move beyond the initial moment of release, you enter what Edgar Casey described as the transitional realm, a dimension that some call the borderland. It's not quite the final destination, and it's not a static place. It's a fluid, living field of energy shaped by thought, emotion, and spiritual vibration. Here you begin to truly feel the shift in your vibratory state. Imagine your body dissolving not into nothingness, but into light, fluid, electric, responsive. You're no longer bound by gravity, time, or the rules of form. Your soul is now adjusting to a state where intention becomes movement and emotion becomes color. Every feeling radiates into your surroundings like ink dropped into water. And just as the physical world had laws, mass, matter, distance, this realm is governed by resonance. You are magnetized toward what matches you. The first beings you encounter here are not strangers. They feel like home. They may take forms familiar to you, human shapes, faces of loved ones, archetypes from your beliefs. But deeper than the form is the feeling, recognition. These are guides, soul companions, sometimes even aspects of your higher self appearing in digestible form. They don't speak with mouths. They communicate in waves, impressions, images, pulses of knowing that flood your awareness. You don't hear a sentence. You understand the meaning behind it all at once. One guide, radiant and soft, may greet you with a frequency that brings you to tears, not because you're sad, but because you remember them. You remember every lifetime they walked beside you, sometimes as a friend, sometimes as a stranger who changed everything with a single glance. Another being may glow with a golden white energy that feels like sunlight through your soul. You won't need to ask who they are. You'll just know they are here to help you transition. This realm, this borderland, can appear differently to each soul. For some, it's a vast, luminous landscape filled with colors not seen on Earth. Others describe grand temples, celestial gardens, or cities of light. Casey said this place is like a halfway house of the spirit. It's a place of pause, where the soul shakes off the remnants of physical life and begins to tune itself to the higher realms, but not every soul transitions the same way. Some arrive here peacefully, gliding on waves of recognition and acceptance. Others arrive with confusion, especially if their beliefs about death were rigid or fearful. A soul that clung too tightly to identity, to control, or to the material world may not immediately recognize what's happened. These souls may wander, still attached to the illusion that they are alive. They may try to re-enter their body. They may hover near the earth, seeking out familiar places or people. They are not lost in a punishment. They are simply adjusting at their own pace. And they are never alone. There are souls who volunteer for this. Beings who act as guides, watchers, midwives of transition. They reach out with calm, loving energy. They don't pull or force. They simply hold presence, whispering reminders, radiating peace. Over time, the confused soul begins to see, begins to feel, begins to remember, and when they do, the resistance begins to fade, the fog lifts, and the light begins to call them forward. Casey emphasized that the borderland isn't a place of judgment, it's a place of orientation, like stepping off a ship and finding your footing on unfamiliar land. Some souls acclimate quickly, others need more time. There's no shame in either path. The vibratory frequency of your thoughts, emotions, and intentions acts like a compass, drawing you toward specific areas of this realm. Some locations are gentle and nurturing, designed for rest. Others are learning zones, full of symbols and sacred geometry that transmit meaning just by being near them. You might find yourself in a crystalline chamber with other souls, absorbing frequencies that balance your energy field. You might enter a circle of light and receive visions, past lives, symbolic archetypes, scenes from cosmic history that stir something ancient inside you. These are not dreams. They are encounters with the deeper architecture of your consciousness. Here, remembering is healing, awareness is growth. And if you were deeply loved in life, or deeply loving, those bonds still echo here, not as clinging but as luminous threads of energy. You may sense a mother's hand, a father's laugh, a child's gaze. You feel them not through thought, but through resonance. They may come to greet you, or you may simply know they are close. Love, Casey taught, is the great connector across all dimensions. But not all attachments are pure. Some souls cling to emotions unresolved, grief, anger, addiction, guilt. These frequencies act like anchors, holding them in the lower thresholds of the borderland. In these cases, healing is required before the soul can rise. This is where the helpers come in again, those luminous beings who sit with such souls, radiating compassion, showing them the patterns of their pain, not to condemn, but to liberate. And the soul always has a choice, always. No matter how long one lingers, no matter how far they wander, the invitation to rise, to move toward the light, toward remembrance, toward healing, is always available. The guides don't punish, they don't abandon, they simply wait. And the moment the soul begins to say, "I'm ready," the entire realm responds. Frequencies shift, light intensifies, the way forward appears. This realm is not a final destination. It's a sacred bridge, a cosmic shoreline between what was and what will be, and once the soul has adjusted, once it has released the weight of the world, once it begins to hum again at its natural frequency, it's drawn forward again, toward the next phase of its post-life journey, toward deeper remembering, toward integration, toward the wisdom it came here to reclaim. After the soul stabilizes in the borderland and its vibrational field harmonizes, something profound unfolds, an experience so intimate, so illuminating, it has been spoken of across time and cultures. Edgar Cayce referred to it not as judgment, but as illumination. This is the life review. And it's nothing like what most people imagine. You're not standing before a deity tallying sins and virtues. You're not being scolded or praised like a child. Instead, you are invited to witness your life, not from the outside, but from within, every moment you ever lived. Imagine watching a film of your entire existence, but instead of merely watching it, you become it again. You step back into each interaction, each thought, each decision, but this time, you feel everything from both sides. When you recall the times you gave love, you feel it reverberate not just in your own heart, but in the hearts of those who received it. You feel how one kind word healed someone's inner doubt, how one moment of compassion rippled through a person's life in ways you never knew. That smile you gave the stranger who was contemplating ending it all, you feel the moment their spirit shifted because of your presence. You didn't even know, but your soul did. And then, the other side. You re-experience the pain you caused, not from guilt, but through empathic immersion. If you spoke harshly, you feel the sting it left in another's chest. If you betrayed someone's trust, you feel the confusion, the loss, the fracture it created in their being. But it doesn't come as punishment, it comes as clarity. Not a courtroom, but a classroom. You begin to understand at the deepest level the interconnectedness of everything, every thought, every word, every ripple, and in that space something awakens within you. You don't recoil in shame, you open in realization. You see the immense responsibility and beauty of being a soul in a body. You see how your energy shaped the lives around you, how your unresolved fears became the pain of others, how your courage became their hope. And for the first time you see your life not as isolated choices, but as threads in a vast web of consciousness. This is divine teaching. This is soul-level learning. Cayce described this process as a mirror of the soul. You stand before it and nothing is hidden, not because you're being exposed, but because you're ready to remember, ready to see your truth without distortion, without denial. And the remarkable thing is, you're not alone while watching. Your guides remain by your side, their presence unwavering. There's no condemnation in their eyes, only deep love and a steady, unshakable belief in your ability to evolve. They've seen your lifetimes. They've watched you rise and fall, love and lose, forget and remember. And in this moment, as you rewalk your earthly journey, they radiate support. They understand how hard it is to be human. They know the density of that world, the veil of amnesia, the struggle to stay awake in a place designed to distract you from your divinity. And still, you chose to go there. You chose to grow through it. They honor that, and now so do you. As the review continues, you begin to feel patterns emerge. You see how unresolved wounds from childhood became behaviors in adulthood, how fear masqueraded as control, how silence became regret, how small choices repeated over time became lifelines or chains. You may laugh, you may cry, you may whisper, "I didn't know." But then you remember. Now you do. And that changes everything. You're not here to be perfect, you're here to be conscious. The life review is not about labeling you good or bad. It's about showing you what you've created, what you've learned, and what remains to be healed or understood. It is soul inventory, and through it you start to see yourself more clearly, not as the role you played, but as the soul that animated the role, the actor, not the costume. If you caused harm, you're not doomed. You're invited to understand, and in that understanding you begin the process of karmic healing. If you brought love, you're not glorified. You're reminded of your essence, and in that remembering, you align even more with your true frequency. Some souls experience this review as a journey through symbolic landscapes, a meadow where every flower holds a memory, a river reflecting each major turning point, a hall of mirrors where every reflection reveals a lesson. The form doesn't matter. What matters is the resonance, the transmission, the knowing that settles in your field like sunlight through stained glass. And as this process unfolds, something even more powerful begins to emerge. Compassion, not just for others, for yourself. You begin to soften toward who you were. You see the moments you made mistakes and you understand why. The fear you were trapped in, the pain you carried from lifetimes ago, the longing for love that went unspoken. And you forgive yourself not because you're told to, but because you see the bigger picture. You realize that you were learning, always learning, and you were never alone in that. This is the true essence of what Casey meant by judgment as self-awareness. It's not a verdict handed down by a divine authority. It's a dawning of truth within your soul, a truth that sets you free. And when the life review is complete, you feel changed, not shattered, expanded, enlightened. You know yourself in a way you never did before. The masks have dropped, the illusions dissolved, and in their place stands something radiant, something whole, something you. And now with that awareness you are ready for what comes next, ready to return to your soul family, ready to reconnect with the spirits who have walked with you across lifetimes, ready to rest, to heal, and to prepare for a deeper remembering still. As the echoes of your life review begin to settle, something extraordinary begins to happen. You start to feel a presence, not just around you, but within you. A warmth, like a familiar song playing softly in your soul. And then you see them. Not strangers, not angels in robes or beings of unattainable light. You see faces, eyes that know you, energies that your soul has danced with across centuries. Some you knew in this life, a parent who passed years before you, a child who left too soon, a best friend who always felt more like family. Others you don't recognize by face, but the connection pierces through time. The feeling is unmistakable. It's home. This is your soul group. They come in slowly, as if not to overwhelm you. You feel them before you see them. Waves of recognition, currents of love, the magnetic resonance of souls who have walked beside you through lifetimes of laughter, pain, birth, and death. They don't need to say anything. The reunion is not spoken, it is known, felt, embodied. You fall into their presence like a child running into the arms of someone who never stopped waiting. You remember the mother from your last life who once was your brother, the friend who played your rival centuries ago but taught you strength through opposition, the twin flame whose connection defied logic on earth and burned too brightly to last. You see now that these relationships were never accidents. They were orchestrations, woven through the higher will of love, written into the contracts of the soul before your first breath. And in this realm there is no judgment, only understanding. Here, the soul doesn't ask, "Why did you hurt me?" It asks, "What did we come to teach each other?" And the answers pour forth. The father who was distant in this life reveals the role he played, not to punish, but to awaken something in you. The lover who broke your heart was there to mirror the pieces you hadn't yet healed. The friend who disappeared was helping you learn self-reliance, and the child you lost was never really gone. They simply had a shorter chapter to write in your story, and now they welcome you back, glowing with love and wisdom beyond their years. You laugh, you cry, you remember. This is not a gathering of the past. It's a restoration of the eternal. Casey described soul groups as clusters of spirits who evolved together, supporting each other in their missions, lifetimes after lifetime. Not always as friends, not always in comfort, but always in purpose. And here, with the veils removed, you see it all with eyes of clarity. You see the beauty in the pain, the grace in the conflict, the sacredness in the roles you once resented. And now, with full awareness, you begin to heal. The misunderstandings, the betrayals, the old wounds, they dissolve in the light of this truth. Not because they are erased, but because they are transformed. You realize that karma isn't punishment. It's balance, it's movement, it's love disguised as challenge, waiting to be remembered as a gift. And now, in this reunion, you and your soul family engage in that sacred exchange. There is no need for words. Energy flows effortlessly between you. Visions, memories, patterns. You see how your lives intersected, twisted, parted, and met again. You understand how every role was chosen with care, with love, even when it didn't feel that way at the time. And in that understanding, the heaviness lifts. What was unresolved becomes whole. This is where twin flames often re-emerge, that one soul who feels like both mirror and fire, the one who stirred your soul awake on earth, even if it led to pain, to distance, to longing. You meet them again here, and it's different. There is no need to fix, to chase, to cling, because here there is no separation. You realize they were never meant to complete you, but to catalyze you, to ignite the parts of yourself that were dormant, and now you meet as equals, whole, seen. The sense of home is overwhelming, not because of a place, but because of presence. You are surrounded by those who know your soul better than anyone on earth ever could. You are not performing, you are not protecting, you are not pretending. You are simply being, and that is enough. Some souls within your group have stayed here in the higher realms guiding others. Some have returned to earth again and again, and some are preparing to go back. You feel their intentions, like colors moving across a sky, each path unique, each choice honored. And here is where the exchange deepens. In this circle, lessons are shared, not in lectures but in energetic transmission. One soul shares what they learned in their last life, how forgiveness transformed a lineage. Another reveals the pain of refusing their truth and what it taught them. You listen, you absorb, and you offer your own. Your time on earth becomes sacred scripture in the library of your group. Every struggle, every victory, every revelation, it feeds the evolution of all. This is soul community at its purest, not bound by blood but by vibration, a group committed not to comfort but to ascension. Through every life you've taken turns, being the teacher, the student, the wounder, the healer, and now in this sacred reunion you rest in the beauty of that eternal reciprocity. Some moments feel like joy beyond anything you ever imagined, others bring tears. Not of sadness, but of release. The kind of tears that come when you finally exhale after lifetimes of holding your breath. You realize something here that shifts you forever. You have never truly been alone. Not once. Every step, every fall, every awakening, you were surrounded by souls who loved you too deeply to interfere, but were always near, guiding in silence, holding space in the unseen, waiting in love. And now, in this gathering, you prepare for what comes next, not out of duty, but out of choice, because love, when fully remembered, becomes action, becomes creation, becomes evolution. You are ready for deeper levels of healing, of remembering, of service. But before that, you rest, cradled in the resonance of your true family, remembered, renewed, reborn into the knowing that you are never alone, and that love, real love, is never lost. It only waits. After your reunion with your soul group, something begins to stir in your field, a gentle pull, like a calling you can't ignore. It's not urgent, it's sacred. You begin to move, not with steps, but with intention, and as you move, the space around you begins to shift. Light becomes more complex. Geometry appears in the air like living architecture. You are approaching the halls of learning. These aren't buildings in the traditional sense. They're vast, energetic structures, glowing with intelligence. Some look like temples woven from starlight. Others are crystalline towers or spirals of gold that seem to rise forever. Whatever their form, they are alive with wisdom. You feel it the moment you draw near, like a memory returning that was never truly lost. These are the soul libraries. Casey spoke of them as vibrational repositories of universal truth, places where the records of lifetimes are stored not on pages, but in light. Every soul has access to its own, and to those which it is prepared to understand. You are brought to them not to be told what to do, but to remember what you already knew before you chose to forget. And as you enter, you are met by beings who are luminous not because they shine, but because their presence makes you feel like you do. They are teachers of light, not figures of authority, but embodiments of pure resonance. You don't learn from them in the way you learned in school. There are no lectures, no tests. Instead, there are transmissions, waves of energy, like music encoded with meaning. One of these teachers approaches, and the moment they look at you, your soul vibrates. Not because they're powerful, but because they mirror the part of you that is. In their gaze, you remember your lineage, your origin, your soul purpose. You don't hear words, you receive knowing. Entire volumes of information pour into you in an instant, not through analysis, but through vibration. It feels like a flood of light into every cell of your soul. You understand things without needing to figure them out. Truth doesn't arrive through logic, it arrives as resonance. You know it's true because it aligns, because it clicks into place like the final note in a symphony. You're shown your soul contract, not as a list of tasks or duties, but as a pattern, an intention, a divine rhythm. You see the blueprint of your most recent incarnation. You see why you chose that family, why you placed yourself in that town, that relationship, that body. You see the lessons woven through every challenge, the moments that broke you open, the people who woke you up. And you realize something that floods your being with emotion. It was all designed by you. Not your ego, not your wounded self, but the highest part of you. The eternal you. The you that exists outside of time, crafting lifetimes like brushstrokes on a cosmic canvas. And suddenly every heartbreak makes sense, every delay, every detour, not because pain is necessary, but because growth is. And you see now how nothing was wasted. Even the moments you thought were failures were simply preparations, initiations. You see how your soul has been crafting its own evolution across eons, moving through archetypes, civilizations, dimensions. You remember being a healer in ancient Egypt, a seeker in forgotten lands, a mother, a soldier, a poet, a monk. You see how the threads connect, forming constellations across time, all pointing to one truth. You are becoming whole. Your teacher brings you into deeper awareness. You begin to receive knowledge not only about yourself, but about how reality works. You're shown the laws of frequency, the mechanics of manifestation, the structure of dimensions, but not in diagrams, in experiences. You are inside the truths you are learning. You become the concepts as they unfold. You witness how thoughts ripple into timelines, how emotions sculpt the fabric of experience. You learn that energy is not just a tool, it is the language of creation. You begin to speak it fluently, not with words, but with intention. You learn how souls create together, how collective consciousness weaves shared realities, how love is the highest frequency of alignment. And in one moment of breathtaking clarity, you see that Earth is not a school because it's broken, it's a school because it's sacred. The contrast, the limitation, the forgetting, they exist so that remembering can be chosen, so that divinity can be discovered not as a gift, but as an earned recognition. You now understand why your path was difficult, why your challenges were perfectly shaped to awaken your dormant light, why certain people triggered you so deeply, because they were holding mirrors to the parts of yourself still waiting to be reclaimed. And this understanding doesn't make you regret your life. It makes you reverent of it. You begin to teach, too, not because you are finished learning, but because wisdom naturally becomes transmission. Your very presence becomes instruction. You radiate what you now remember, and those around you absorb it, not through words, but through frequency. This is soul schooling at its most luminous, every being a student, every being a teacher, and every exchange a step toward remembering. There are advanced souls here, mentors who have not reincarnated for thousands of years. They exist in higher vibrational planes, guiding civilizations, orchestrating planetary movements, weaving energetic harmonics across galaxies. And even in their vastness, they greet you not as lesser, but as kin. Because at the soul level, hierarchy dissolves into harmony. And now, you begin to ask bigger questions. Not just, who was I, but what am I becoming? Not just, what did I learn, but how can I serve? Your energy begins to expand again. The downloads settle into your field like seeds of light. And you know, deep in your eternal center, that you are being prepared, not for rest, but for purpose. Not because you must prove yourself, but because you are ready to embody more of who you truly are. And as this chapter of soul education draws to a close, you feel a stirring deep within your being. Something is calling you forward again. You are about to step into a new dimension of integration, of healing, of karmic resolution, because now that you know, you are ready to become. After the revelations of soul education, your field begins to shift again. But this time it's not toward knowledge. It's toward restoration. Your soul has absorbed vast energies, remembered deep truths, and uncovered layers that were buried across lifetimes. And now it needs space. Not to process with the mind, but to recalibrate on a deeper, more sacred level. You are guided, gently, lovingly, into a new space. It doesn't look like anything you've seen before. It's not physical, it's vibrational. You feel it before you see it. A sanctuary made not of walls, but of harmony. A temple that hums with tones that awaken healing just by existing within them. Some have called these places the celestial clinics, the healing temples, or simply home. Casey spoke of them as centers of spiritual repair, where the soul could rest and realign after the distortions of physical incarnation. And as you enter, you feel something shift immediately. There is no pressure here, no striving, only support. The energy is soft but powerful. It cradles you, enfolds you, speaks directly to every layer of your being. If your transition from the body was sudden, through trauma, accident, or shock, this is where your soul begins to release what the body could not. The energetic residue of pain, fear, or confusion that clung to your light is gently drawn out. You may be placed in what feels like a crystalline chamber, lying in something that radiates with warmth and intelligence. Light pulses through you, not with force but with rhythm, every pulse synchronized to your unique soul frequency. There are beings here, healers, not bound by form but recognizable by their resonance. They do not ask you questions, they do not probe your memories. They simply hold space with a love so vast, it melts resistance without effort. Their presence reminds you of something your human life made you forget. Healing is your natural state. Sound flows into your field like a sacred medicine, not music, but tone, frequencies that bypass the mind and speak directly to your soul architecture. You feel areas of tightness begin to unravel, emotions you never fully released, grief, shame, longing, begin to surface and dissolve, not in a dramatic way, in a way that feels like returning, like exhaling what you didn't even know you were holding. There is no rush, no judgment. Time bends around you in these sanctuaries. You may rest for what feels like moments or what feels like years, and all the while your soul is being rebalanced, not by doing but by allowing. It's here that you begin to address the emotional echoes still lingering from your last life, the unspoken apologies, the lingering regrets, the what-ifs that haunted you. And you're not alone in this. Sometimes, a soul you left unfinished business with will appear, not to confront, but to complete. You may face someone you harmed or who harmed you, and in this sacred space, with your higher selves present, you see beyond blame. You see the contract, you see the growth, and sometimes you exchange not words, but energy, a gesture, a vibration, a deep gaze that says, "I understand now." And that is enough. Other times you are met by yourself, not in ego but in echo, a reflection of who you were at your most wounded, and you hold that version of you not with judgment but with compassion. You whisper to that part of yourself, "You made it. You're safe now." And something inside you begins to integrate. Casey taught that grace is as real as karma, that while karmic law is exact, it is never without mercy. And here, you begin to feel that balance, not as a scale, but as a symphony. The understanding that for every pain caused there can be healing, that every misstep is an opportunity for course correction, that the universe does not punish, it teaches, and when the lesson is received, the burden lifts. You may be guided to walk through light corridors, each color restoring a different part of your soul's energy field. You may sit in silence within temples where the walls seem to breathe with intelligence, as if the space itself is participating in your healing. You may be shown visions, not of past lives, but of emotional patterns, and in witnessing them you begin to reclaim power you once gave away. There's an unspoken truth here that settles into your being. You are not broken, you never were. Every fracture was a doorway, every wound was an opening, every loss was a remembering of something deeper. And now that you are no longer carrying the density of the body, you can feel what those experiences truly taught you, not just intellectually, but cellularly, soularly. You begin to integrate the wisdom that was hidden inside the pain, and that wisdom becomes part of your frequency. It radiates from you. It informs your next choices. It becomes part of your soul's signature. This healing is not passive, it's active surrender, and in your willingness to let go, to feel, to rest, you become stronger, clearer, lighter. You begin to feel yourself expanding again, not as a reaction, but as a natural emergence. The noise is gone, the distortions are gone, and what remains is pure essence. You are beginning to hum in alignment with your truest self. And when the healing is complete, not because a clock says so, but because your soul says so, you rise. Not like a patient leaving a hospital, but like a phoenix, rising from its own gentle ashes. You are renewed. You are whole. You are ready to step into the next stage, not out of urgency, but from inner readiness. Because what awaits is not only further remembering, but the choice to serve, or to return, or to become something greater than either. And now that your soul has tasted restoration, that choice will come not from old wounds, but from new wisdom. Something shifts again, not in the environment, but in you. The rest, the healing, the recalibration, it opens space, and in that space, something vast begins to emerge. a clarity, like the lifting of a veil you didn't even know was there. Suddenly your awareness expands outward, far beyond your individual journey. You begin to see the wider tapestry. It begins as a quiet recognition that Earth is not isolated, that your life was not an isolated event but part of a multidimensional unfolding. You see how souls enter the Earth experience, not just for personal growth, but as participants in a cosmic drama, an evolutionary theater playing out across timelines, dimensions, and planes of being. Edgar Cayce described this awareness as stepping into the higher mind, the point at which the soul begins to perceive its role not as an individual, but as a node of consciousness within the divine matrix. From this new vantage point you begin to feel timelines, not as lines but as living currents. You see that the life you just lived is still rippling outward. Every act of love you offered is touching people still alive. Every moment of courage is amplifying someone else's hope. And the shadows you struggled with, you see now how they challenged others to rise. It's all connected, always was. You begin to perceive simultaneous existences, other versions of you living other lives, not past, not future, but parallel. In some you are a monk, in others a warrior, a priestess, a scientist, a rebel. You sense how the lessons of each are shared across the soul stream. You are learning across dimensions, and what you integrate here affects them all. And then, your own soul specialization begins to emerge. Some souls radiate a healing frequency, energies that soothe, mend, realign. You may realize you've always been this, even on Earth. The one people confided in, the one who held pain without turning away. Others begin to feel the teacher archetype rising, a vibration of wisdom and clarity, not from superiority but from lived experience. You taught through how you lived, through your resilience, through your questions. Some souls emerge as helpers, bridge builders between worlds. They incarnate often not because they must, but because they choose to. Their mission is to lift others, awaken others, walk beside those still in forgetting. And then there are the messengers, souls whose field naturally receives and transmits higher knowledge. These are the translators of spiritual truth, often drawn to writing, channeling, creativity, or guiding humanity through subtle nudges and inspiration. You begin to feel which one you are, or maybe you are a blend. In this phase, roles are not assigned, they are revealed, not through title, but through resonance. You begin to remember what your soul has done across eons. Maybe you served as a gatekeeper between dimensions. Maybe you helped design energetic systems in higher civilizations. Maybe you've spent millennia helping lost souls cross over, and now, with your current frequency stabilized, you are preparing again, but not for incarnation, for service. There is a vast network of spiritual guidance systems assisting Earth at all times. You see it now, as if looking through layers of a cosmic web. There are beings helping mothers cradle newborns, others guiding artists in moments of creative breakthrough. Some whisper to those contemplating giving up, infusing them with the tiniest flame of will to go on. These aren't myths. They're you. They're us. Cayce taught that souls often become guides between lifetimes, not as disembodied forces, but as conscious co-creators walking beside the living from beyond the veil. Now you see how that works. You may have felt one of them in your life, when a thought came to you out of nowhere, a decision that saved your life, a dream that changed your course. That wasn't random, that was design. And now you stand ready to be that presence for someone else. You are shown possibilities. You may assist a soul about to enter Earth, a child soon to be born needing energetic preparation. You may take on the role of dream guardian, transmitting messages through symbolic imagery while someone sleeps. Or perhaps you feel drawn to help other transitioning souls, those just arriving, bewildered in the borderland. And as you explore these potentials, something ignites in you, a remembrance of why you always cared so deeply. It was never just empathy, it was your soul remembering its role. Your field begins to shimmer differently now, less dense, more refined. You start to perceive the soul journeys of others, not out of intrusion but as insight. You feel their frequencies and know what they're working through. You see a soul grappling with addiction and understand the core wound beneath it. You sense a soul awakening to their purpose after lifetimes of fear. And your response is not pity, but love. In this expanded view, judgment becomes impossible. You understand now why some souls take dark paths, not because they are lost forever, but because they are learning through contrast. You see the long arc of their becoming. You see that no soul is ever discarded. Every being returns home in time. And in that knowing, your compassion deepens. This is the beginning of what some call interdimensional awareness. You are starting to operate as part of a larger intelligence, an ecosystem of spirit, where souls support, inspire and uplift one another, not from above, but beside. And all of this, your healing, your remembering, your expanding, has been leading to a question. What now? Do you serve from here? Do you reincarnate with a new mission? Do you ascend to a realm even more subtle, even more expansive? There is no pressure. There is only preparation. And you know, deep in the pulse of your spirit, that something sacred awaits. You are not finished. You are not lost. You are evolving, and everything you've been through is preparing you for the next offering. And so, as your field continues to harmonize with your highest expression, you begin to sense the next phase calling, not as duty, but as destiny. As your field stabilizes in the light of cosmic perspective, another doorway opens, not a literal one, but a shift in vibrational call. You feel it in your being, a deep, resonant invitation, and without needing to ask, you know what comes next. It's time to meet with the elders, the councils of light. You don't travel to them in the way humans travel, you attune to them. As your consciousness aligns with their frequency, you find yourself in their presence. The space is sacred, vast and radiant. Some see it as a great hall, others as a crystalline dome or a sphere of interwoven energies. Whatever form it takes for you, the essence is the same. This is where decisions of deep spiritual importance are made, not out of pressure, but purpose. And seated within this sacred council are beings of immense love and wisdom. They are not there to command or control. They do not dictate. They listen. They reflect. They emanate presence, so pure it draws the deepest truth out of your own soul. These are not just advisors. They are memory keepers, record holders. Some have journeyed through thousands of incarnations. Others have not incarnated in eons, choosing instead to hold resonance for the great unfolding. Casey spoke of these councils not as judges, but as stewards of balance. Beings who help the soul remember what it chose to learn, to teach, to evolve. And now you sit before them, not with fear, but with reverence. You are shown a view of your karmic balance, not as punishment or reward, but as an energetic echo. You feel the patterns you've healed, and the ones still unfolding. You sense where your soul has gained strength, and where it still seeks clarity. You feel how your most recent life contributed to your soul's mission, and how certain lessons remain incomplete, not in failure but in evolution. They show you your soul threads, those you crossed paths with countless times. You see souls who await your return, because your presence awakens something vital in them. You see those you promised to meet again, promises made in moments of light, waiting to be fulfilled in a future Earth moment. You begin to explore possibilities. You are shown potential incarnations. You see different timelines unfold before you, some hard, some beautiful, all meaningful. One may offer deep spiritual awakening, but with physical limitation. Another may grant power and influence, but require fierce discipline of ego. Each life is a curriculum. Each option is a sacred path, and none are forced upon you. Here, choice is everything. You are not pushed to reincarnate. You are invited. Some souls, after long cycles of earth experience, feel called to guide from the other side. They become spiritual companions, whispering through dreams, orchestrating synchronicity, holding light for those still on the earth plane. Their choice is not an escape, it's an evolution of service. And others, even older souls, choose to incarnate again, not because they have to, but because love asks them to. You may be one of them. You may feel it stirring even now, the desire to return, not as a reaction, but as a calling, to teach by being, to love more deeply, to walk the earth not in forgetting, but in remembrance. And in this sacred council, if you choose to return, the soul contract begins to take form, not in ink, in energy. You co-create it with your guides. You weave in key lessons, sacred connections, opportunities for growth and remembrance. You may choose to be born into challenge, not as punishment but as acceleration. You may choose to rejoin familiar souls in new roles. Perhaps the one who was your child becomes your teacher. The one who was your adversary becomes your greatest ally. The themes are chosen with deep intentionality. Self-worth, surrender, love without attachment, truth without fear. These become the silent architecture of your next life, guiding you from behind the veil. And you choose the veil. You know you'll forget again. You'll forget this place, this meeting, this clarity. But you choose it anyway, because you trust the journey, because you've seen how, even in the forgetting, the light always finds a way through. And before the contract is sealed, you're given a final moment of reflection. One of the elders places their light upon your soul, not with force, but with infinite tenderness. They ask, not in words, but in vibration, "Are you ready?" And from the deepest part of your being a knowing rises. Yes, because you understand now that every incarnation is a sacred act, a dance of courage, of purpose, of soul commitment, and this time you're not just going back to learn, you're going back to embody, to be a lighthouse in the fog, to be love in form. And so the contract is sealed, not as fate, but as intention, flexible, alive, guided always by free will. The soul never loses its sovereignty. Even in incarnation, even in forgetting, the inner compass remains. You are held one last time in the light of the council. They do not say goodbye, because there is no separation, only expanding missions. And as you prepare to leave, you carry something with you, something beyond knowledge, beyond planning. You carry a promise to remember sooner, to love deeper, to awaken more gently, and, above all, to trust, because the soul does not forget forever. It simply waits for the right moment. To remember. As the soul contract is sealed and your next path set into motion, whether that be reincarnation, spiritual service, or ascension into higher realms, another sacred shift begins. This one is quieter. It's not marked by visions or counsels or plans. It unfolds like the final exhale after a long, purposeful breath. This is the realignment. You begin to feel yourself moving beyond the patterns of a single life. The experiences, the roles, the emotions, they begin to dissolve, not into nothing, but into everything. You are not forgetting. You are integrating. Your most recent incarnation, along with countless others, begins to harmonize within the greater field of your being. You become aware of the Oversoul, not as something outside of you, but as the greater you have always been. Imagine every life you've ever lived as a thread, and the Oversoul as the tapestry they form when woven together. Some threads were bright with joy, some were dark with pain, some you thought were mistakes. But now, in this luminous perspective, you see how every thread added depth, color, texture, and the full tapestry. It's magnificent. It's you. The egoic residue begins to dissolve, gently, gracefully. The The name you carried, the titles, the self-definitions. Not erased, but released. Like taking off a costume after a deeply immersive play. You honor who you were. You send gratitude to the personality that carried your soul through that incarnation, but you are no longer confined by it. You expand past it. You are no longer just someone who died. You are becoming once more the soul that chose to live, again and again, across time and form. And in this merging, acceptance flows in. You no longer resist the mistakes. You no longer cling to the victories. You see them all as movements in a divine dance. You finally feel the freedom of not needing to be anything, because you already are everything. This is the merging with the higher self, not as a meeting of strangers, but a reunion of long separated facets. The teacher, the wounded healer, the wanderer, the mystic, all versions of you, layered and luminous, begin to fold inward into your center. You feel your field expanding, not just upward, but inward and outward in every direction. Limitlessness doesn't frighten you anymore. It welcomes you. Casey spoke of this moment as the soul's turning toward Source. Not the end of a journey, but the return to divine remembrance. And now, you feel what he meant, not as a concept, as a vibration, as an undeniable knowing that you were never really separate, that Source was not waiting in some distant place. It was breathing through you, in every incarnation, in every cell, in every whisper of longing you ever had. Here, love is not an emotion. It's the very structure of your being. It is not something you give or receive. It is what you are. And as you sink into that knowing, you begin to sense your own light expanding beyond the human form, beyond even the soul form, becoming pure presence. You look back, not in regret, but in reverence, that one human life with all its messiness and meaning becomes like a single note in a grand symphony, and yet without that note the music wouldn't be complete. You realize now how sacred that single breath, that single choice, that single life really was. And you feel it, the letting go. The final attachments to form, to identity, to duality begin to fall away. You are not being erased, you are being remembered, fully, wholly, as you've always been. You are no longer just the traveler, you are the entire journey, and in that state true freedom opens. You are no longer afraid, you are no longer seeking, you are no longer separate. You are only love, moving as light. You don't go to the source. You become aware that you've never left it. And from this place, something incredible happens. You begin to see that every soul, no matter how lost they seemed, no matter how far they wandered, will also find their way here, because this realignment is not reserved for the few. It is the destiny of all. This is grace. This is the deeper law that Casey spoke of, a universe not governed by fear but by divine rhythm, karma as learning, reincarnation as remembering, and in the end, every path curving back toward the heart of Source. You may choose to remain in this state of union for what feels like eternity. Some souls do. Others return, again and again, not from lack, but from love. From the unshakable desire to serve, to assist, to be a light in the veil. But wherever you go next, you will carry this realignment with you, because now you are whole. You are not just healed, you are home. And nothing, no incarnation, no illusion, no fear can ever make you forget that again. Not completely, because once the soul touches the edge of Source, it leaves a light inside that never goes out. Now that you've realigned with your higher self, something new begins to arise, not as longing, but as love. As your vibration settles into peace, a gentle awareness flickers at the edge of your field, Earth. You begin to sense it again, not as a place of pain or density, but as a living, breathing classroom. The planet that once held your laughter, your tears, your breath, still pulses in your soul's memory. But this time, you're not drawn by attachment. You're drawn by connection. You begin to look in not as a ghost, not as an observer from the outside, but from the quiet center of expanded awareness. You see the people you loved. You feel them. A spouse still sleeping on one side of the bed. A child staring out the window, wondering if you can still hear them. A friend who plays your favorite song on the anniversary of your passing. And you feel it all, not with sadness, but with the deepest compassion. And yes, you can reach them. You begin to understand the delicate art of presence. You no longer exist in physical time, but you can influence it. You send impressions, synchronicities, the soft nudges that arrive in dreams or déjà vu. You might guide their thoughts toward comfort, or help them sense a fragrance they associate with you. You can't interfere with their choices, but you can walk beside them as they make them. And they do feel ye even when they doubt it, even when they say, "I wish you were here," and don't hear a reply. Your soul is whispering back, "I never left, I just changed form." You see the impact you left behind, not in monuments or achievements, but in the imprints of love. The kindness you showed a stranger. The moment you forgave someone instead of lashing out. The way you showed up for your family, your art, your truth. These echoes are alive. They continue to shape the world you left. You realize now that a life never ends. It reverberates. And then you see the struggles. You may see your loved ones in grief, spiraling through sorrow or guilt. You feel their pain, not as your burden, but as an invitation. This is often when souls choose to become guardians, not in the fairy tale sense, but as energetic wayshowers. You begin to send messages, line up encounters, bring supportive people into their lives. You learn that love transcends dimensions. You learn that death doesn't separate souls, only perception does. And your job is not to convince them of your presence, but to be your presence. To hold light so consistently that they begin to feel safe enough to open to it. Sometimes you guide multiple people, family, soul friends, or even strangers you passed briefly in life but touched in unseen ways. You realize now that the love you offered in earth form wasn't bound by identity. It was your soul working through your body, and that soul continues. You may begin to guide souls who are still in their human journey, those who are walking the path you once walked. You feel drawn to someone going through a challenge you once endured. You know how to hold space for them, how to support them without intruding. This is spiritual guidance in its most sacred form, invisible love in motion. You don't need recognition. You don't need thanks. You only need alignment. And yet, in this giving, you begin to receive even more. You witness your loved ones growing. You see them healing, opening, remembering. One day, the spouse who thought they'd never smile again feels sunlight on their face and laughs. The child who feared being alone begins to talk to you, out loud. And you send back the unmistakable warmth of your presence. The friend who doubted the afterlife finds your handwriting in a book they'd forgotten. And they know. These moments, they're everything. You begin to understand that your life wasn't just yours. It was part of a lineage, an energetic thread in the vast weave of human and spiritual evolution. And even now, beyond the veil, you're still contributing, still shaping, still loving. As the first Earth year approaches its close, something incredible begins to emerge in your awareness. You begin to feel not only what you've left behind, but what you've become. You are no longer a soul between lives. You are a being of light in your own right. No longer defined by the body, by time, by limitation. You are whole. You have remembered, and now you choose. You may choose to remain here in this luminous realm as a guide, a teacher, a transmitter of light. You may choose to explore other dimensions, other systems, other forms of service or learning. You may choose to incarnate again, not because you must, but because love asks you, to bring light into dark places. Whatever you choose, you know this. You are eternal, you are sovereign, and you are never truly apart from those you love, because the soul never dies. It expands, it remembers, it returns. And one day when those you love cross that same threshold you did, they'll feel that same gentle pull. They'll see that same shimmering light. They'll feel the presence they've known all their life, and they'll recognize it as you, smiling, whole, welcoming them home.